Hello and welcome to today's daily news analysis. The important articles which are here for the discussion are 1. Lokpal, then the Manipur, then the Competition Commission of India, and then the freedom of speech and expression, and the last article for discussion is political participation of women in India. So let's start the discussion. The first article, the Supreme Court is to consider if Lokpal has jurisdiction over judges, and specifically the constitutional judges. This article is relevant from GS2 and Indian polity perspective, and here we see that the powers of Lokpal are discussed in this article. The Supreme Court is examining whether Lokpal has jurisdiction to investigate judges of constitutional courts. So let's see what is the news now. The Supreme Court is hearing a suo motu case on Lokpal's jurisdiction over High Court judges. The case arose after Lokpal's order assuming power to investigate complaints against serving High Court judges. The Lokpal has classified that High Court judges as public servants under Lokpal and Lokayukta Act. The Lokpal and Lokayukta Act has a clause which defines what is a public servant, and all the public servants come under the jurisdiction of Lokpal. So here the Lokpal has taken the liberty to include the High Court judges as public servant and has started investigation. So this is the case now. The special bench has stayed the Lokpal order and termed it very disturbing with the potential impact to the independence of judiciary. Now we will be discussing certain historical background about Lokpal. What is the office? What is Lokpal? Lokpal is an ombudsman. It is an office which is to check corruption, and this office seeks to maintain probity in public life. The institution of ombudsman originated in Sweden in 1713. In India, the institution of Lokayukta was first established in Maharashtra in 1971. Although Odisha had passed the act in this regard in 1970, but it came into force only in 1983. Lokpal now, in the present form, was established after the Lokpal and Lokayukta Act of 2013, and the Lokpal here is a statutory body. And what is the mandate of Lokpal? The Lokpal investigates allegation of corruption against specific public officials and the related matters. Now the composition of Lokpal. The Lokpal should compose of a chairperson who is either a former Chief Justice of India, a Supreme Court judge, or an eminent person with integrity and expertise. The membership of Lokpal. Lokpal can have up to 8 members, with at least 50% being judicial and 50% from underrepresented groups like SC, ST, OBC, minorities and women. The jurisdiction of Lokpal. The Lokpal has jurisdiction over all public servants, including the Prime Minister with certain restrictions, the Union Minister, Member of Parliament and officials of bodies funded and established by the Parliament. However, the complaint against the Prime Minister, so this is an exception here about what will be the procedure in case the Lokpal wants to investigate the Prime Minister. So this, because being an exception, is important for us. However, the complaint against the Prime Minister are subject to stringent conditions, including approval by 2/3 of the Lokpal members, and must relate to matters excluding security, international relations or atomic energy. So you should remember these 3 exceptions, and one, the condition that 2/3 of the members of the Lokpal have to approve it. Then the inquiries under Lokpal. How is the inquiry conducted? So to conduct a preliminary inquiry in any offence, an inquiry wing is established under the section 11 of Lokpal Act. The timeline, the inquiry must be submitted to the Lokpal within 60 days. And what is the composition? It is led by Director of Inquiry under Lokpal chairperson. The director will be supported by 3 superintendents of police. The inquiry body will have the same powers as a civil court under the Code of Civil Procedure 1908. And what is the need of Lokpal? Need of Lokpal comes from corruption and to maintain high order of integrity in public life. And what are the issues here? The issue is lack of independence. Most of the anti-corruption agencies lack independence. So similarly here, the appointment of the Lokpal and the committee which appoints, so there can be more independence here. And there could be also constitutional status be given to Lokpal. So all these are the drawbacks. And sometimes it is stated that most of the anti-corruption agencies are powerless bodies. So even the Supreme Court has called one of the anti-corruption agencies a toothless tiger, a caged parrot. So all these terms can be used. Caged parrot, then toothless tiger. So you can use these terms. Then lack of transparency and internal accountability. So there isn't a separate and effective mechanism to check if the staff of these anti-corruption agencies turns corrupt. What are the major challenges? So number one is the political influence. Then there is no criteria to include jurists in the Lokpal. Then whistleblower immunity and the constitutional backing. So it is again recommended that Lokpal should be given a constitutional status. Then here we have certain suggestions. Suggestions would be related to the challenges itself, that as if give constitutional status. The selection process can be made more independent. The membership of the Lokpal can be made more broad based. So this is all which has been discussed in this slide. So please take a look. And here on the basis of Lokpal Act, we have a practice question. Do attempt it and let us know the answer in the comment box below. Now the second article, it relates to Manipur. The news was in context that true tribal communities in Manipur are to work toward reducing tensions in Manipur. So Manipur as a state has constantly been in news for almost 2 years now. So this makes that not only reading about the conflict per se, but also the larger context of the state. How is the economy of Manipur based? What is the geography of Manipur? What all rivers flow through Manipur? What is their cultural significance? Is there something unique about Manipur? So all these certain low hanging fruits and these undercurrents of questions should be popping in your mind. So you should prepare current affairs like this. So let's start with the discussion. So here in this slide we have discussed few art forms of Manipur. Here we have the Manipuri dance. It evolved in Manipur and it is anchored in Vaishnava faith. So many times we have seen that students do confuse that in the northeast Christianity is the dominant religion. It is true, but in Manipur we find a strong population which adheres to the Vaishnava faith. The Manipuri dance is introverted and restrained compared to most other dances of India. This can be one of the statement in the exam as well. Manipuri dance is introverted and restrained compared to the most other dances. The artist never establishes an eye contact with the audience. The pung, a drum and a flute are the principal instruments. It is one of the 8 classical dance forms of India. Now, please do mention in the comment box that who gives the classical dance status, and in chronology write down what all are the classical dances. Then the second point here is Lai Haroba. It is a spring festival celebrated during April-May, symbolized by a traditional and symbolistic dance performed for peace and prosperity. So Lai Haroba. Then here Manipuri dance is quite evident from the name itself. Then Sankirtana. Sankirtana is a sacred art form of Vaishnava community in Manipur, combining song, dance, drumming to narrate Krishna's life. Performed in temples and courtyards, it evokes deep religious devotion, uniting people during festivals and life cycle ceremonies. It is included in the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. Again, a question for you guys. Go and take a look. What all are India's art form and culture in the intangible cultural heritage of humanity? Is Kumbh part of it? So please do mention it in the comment box. Then we have the Tedim Chin dance. It's a folk dance. Chairabo. It's the Manipuri New Year. So keep these terms in mind whenever you see in the examination. You can find such terms. Hikru Hidongba. It is a long narrow boats are used to accommodate large number of rowers. Idol of Sri Vishnu is installed before the commencement of the race. It is the race. And now we mention here certain unique facts about Manipur. Manipur is home to one of the Asia's largest all-women market called Ima Kithal. It is a 500-year-old market managed by as many as 5,000 women. So this is a unique fact. Ima Kithal. So keep these things in mind. Now we discuss about the geography and ecology of Manipur. Major river of Manipur is Barak and its tributary. There are some other rivers as well: Manipur, Iril, Jiri, Makru, Irang, all these things. The capital of the state, Imphal, is situated on the bank of Barak river. So what is one thing which we derive from this discussion of this slide is Barak river. Take a look at the Barak river. So this here is the Bareil range, and here we see is the Barak river. Barak river going through Manipur and then in Assam and then entering Bangladesh. So it's a transboundary river. Then the second point, nearly 60% of the total area is under forest. Manipur is the abode of Shiroi lily, the paradise flower which is not found elsewhere in the world. So 60% of the total area is under forest. Then the state enjoys a typical monsoon climate with variants ranging from tropical to temperate. The rapid changes in topography results in climatic changes in the short distance. This state receives plenty rainfall. The forest and tree cover of Manipur is 77.2% of the total state geographical area, which is quite large. Manipur is home to the Sangai deer, and it is an endangered deer species now available only in Kibul Lamjau National Park in the state. It is also called Manipur's dancing deer. Now, Kibul Lamjau National Park also has a lake, which is a Ramsar site. So do you know that? So please mention it in the comment box. Kibul Lamjau National Park is located in southern part of Loktak Lake. Again, the thing which we were discussing right now, the Loktak Lake, which is a Ramsar site. The unique floating biomass vegetation which form meadows is locally known as fumdis, plays important role in the habitat of Sangai. It has combination of aquatic wetland and terrestrial ecosystem. This national park has been declared as Ramsar site as well. So based upon the art forms, we have a MCQ here. Please try to attempt it and let us know the answer in the comment box. Now moving on to the next article, which is about the Competition Commission of India. The Competition Commission, according to the article, has raided major ad agencies and broadcasters bodies. So this is the context in which the news has been published. Then the relevance is, it is an institution, a statutory institution. It is important from polity point of view. What are the powers of Competition Commission and what is the overall context in which the news is being published. About the news, the raid comes ahead of 18th edition of IPL, which starts on March 22. Ad transactions for IPL are ongoing and last minute deals may be disrupted due to investigation. So this is the context. Context is the IPL. About the Competition Commission of India. It is a statutory body established in 2009 under Competition Commission Act of 2002. It is also a quasi-judicial body. It operates under the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. The purpose, its aim is to prevent anti-competitive practices, also called as the antitrust agency. And it promotes and sustains market competition, protects consumer interest and ensures freedom of trade in India's markets. It consists of a chairperson and 6 members appointed by the central government. What are the objectives of CCI? Eliminate anti-competitive practices, promote competition, consumer protection, freedom of trade, and establish a competitive environment. the powers of Competition Commission of India. It regulates the anti-competitive practices, reviews mergers and acquisitions. So this point is very important. So it is Competition Commission of India which reviews mergers and acquisition. It imposes penalties, conducts investigation and advocates awareness. So this point, that it reviews mergers and acquisitions, this is more important for us. What are the challenges faced by Competition Commission? That the anti-competitive practices are complex, and then sector specific issues are again more complex. For example, the ad agencies, and now the sector of advertisement is different from say the sector of broadcasting, the sector of let's say pharma. So their sector specific complex issues do emerge. Then it's about globalization. Many companies have their reach beyond a certain country. For example, Google is a major company, and small and medium enterprises cannot compete against Google. So such globalization and scale requires us to allow our market to be open for other MNCs, but these MNCs will eliminate competition. Then limited awareness in the public, and then judicial delays. These are the challenges. And what is the suggested course of action? One, global cooperation between major nations, policy collaboration, capacity building of all the members, consumer awareness, and enhanced digital tools. And the conclusion here is, by addressing the anti-competitive practices and fostering culture of fair play, CCI not only protects consumer interests but also ensures efficient allocation of resources, because it tries to protect the competitive nature of market, and market is known for the efficient allocation of resources. This is the MCQ based upon the discussion, and please do attempt it and let us know the answer in the comment box. Now the next article, which is based on free speech. India has taken 24th spot in a free speech survey. It is a global survey by Future of Free Speech, an independent US based think tank, and it has ranked India 24th out of 33 countries surveyed on the question of free speech. Now, freedom of speech. So this is the core theme here. So we'll discuss about that. And just now going about the news, it is a US based think tank called Future of Free Speech. It has given India rank 24th out of 33, and the survey was conducted in October, and there are other democratic nations such as United States, Israel and Japan also in this list. And the Scandinavia dominated the top rankings, with Norway and Denmark finishing at the apex of the Futures of Freedom Speech Index, and score was 87.9 and 87. India with score of 62.6 was placed 24th between South Africa and Lebanon. Now we will be discussing the freedom of speech in India. The Article 19(1) Clause A guarantees every Indian citizen right to freedom of speech and expression. It is part of the fundamental rights. And this freedom is not absolute, as under Article 19(2) there are reasonable restrictions, and these can be imposed on the exercise of right for certain purposes. And this is the restrictions on certain rights are based upon the harm principle, that liberty of one should not become unliberty of the other. Now, freedom of speech in India. As per the Supreme Court's ruling, the freedom of speech includes what all? Right to propagate one's own as well as others' views, freedom of silence, freedom of the press, right against imposition of pre-censorship on any newspaper, freedom of commercial advertisements, right against taping of telephonic conversation, right to telecast, know about government activities, right to demonstrate or picketing but not the right to strike, right against bandh called by political party or organization. The freedom of speech in India, and specifically Article 19 Clause 2, gives us the reasonable restrictions. What all are the reasonable restrictions in this Article 19 Clause 2? These are security of the state, number 1, public order, decency and morality, number 2, then the defamation, number 3, number 4, incitement to an offence, number 5, contempt of court, number 6, friendly relation with foreign states, number 7, foreign sovereignty and integrity of India. Now we discuss important judgments in case. The Constitutional Amendment Act, that is the first Constitutional Amendment Act, inserted and amended Article 19 Clause 2, and it inserted the grounds such as friendly relation with foreign states and public order was added by the first Constitutional Amendment Act. Then there is a case called Indian Express versus Union of India. In this, the Supreme Court held the freedom of press is an essential part of right of freedom of speech and expression. While government can impose taxes on newspapers, such taxes must not be excessive or prohibitive so as to curtail circulation, thereby restricting freedom of expression. Now, based upon the discussion, now there is a static question on Article 19(1) Clause A. Please do try to attempt this, and this is an easier question as compared to other questions, and let us know the answer in the comment box below. Now, the last article for the day. The article was the factors in which influence women's political participation. So, this was an article on page number 9 of the Hindu Text and Context. The explanation mentioned in this article is important for us in GS paper 1, which is Indian society, the role and position of women in society, then GS2, Indian polity and governance, and how women's political participation has been in India and how it can be increased, what are the challenges they face. So, all these issues, and this is a one holistic article, so one should go through it, make notes out of it. Starting with the discussion, now we have listed 2 previous year questions. One should try to attempt them. Let's read them out. Discuss the contribution of civil society groups for women's effective and meaningful participation and representation in state legislatures. This was in Mains 2023. Then, the reservation of seats for women in the institution of local self-government has had a limited impact on the patriarchal character of India's political process. So, this was given in 1992. So, what all has changed after that? And recently, women reservation bill was passed in the parliament. So, how will that impact? So, the gender gap in politics, is it narrowing, is it widening, and how it can be narrowed, what all strategies the state should use. So, all these are the important questions. Now, moving on to the article. The participation of women in Indian politics has been a subject of paradox among scholars. Why the paradox? Because despite having very powerful political leaders as women, for example, Prime Minister, we've had a women Prime Minister, we've had a women President, we've had many women Chief Ministers, but despite them being at the head of the state positions, has there been any tangible change in the life or the political life of common women? So, that is the question. So, as we know that there has not been a substantial change due to just a head of the state being a woman. So, this is the paradox. And then, despite that, the overall political empowerment remains poor, and unlike many countries where the gender gap in political participation narrowed in around 1990s, in India the gender gap started narrowing down in 2010s. So, this is the discussion. So, while discussion on women's political participation often highlight the social and cultural biases that hinder the electoral success, and less attention is given to how everyday women engage in political practices. So, what does this mean? As if the more focus has been on the social and cultural biases, and less focus has been on the everyday life of politics. And what should be the points of analysis? As if the voting pattern, choices, agency of women, so then there is also another factor, that is winnability in elections. At last, electoral process is a competitive process, and the political parties try to distribute seats according to winnability rather than social justice as being their only goal. So this has also led to marginalization of women in politics. Because political process requires money and muscle power, so this at times limits women's political participation. Now moving ahead, we have mentioned certain historical backgrounds, which is India has a history of marginalization and exploitation of women framed by patriarchal and social structures. In the 19th century, social reform movement started the process of women empowerment. Then, in the freedom movement, Swadeshi movement in Bengal saw impressive participation of women, and then Gandhian movements in the next future also saw a lot of participation of women. And Gandhian movements are known for their comfortability for women to participate openly. Then the women representation right now in the Lok Sabha is 13.6%, whereas in the first Lok Sabha it was 5%. So now we have seen certain increase. But in the 17th Lok Sabha, the women's MPs percentage was 14.3%. But now it has reduced to 13.63%. So what are the choices which impact women's voters' choices? So as we know that the public policy of the current dispensation of the government, like having free LPG cylinders, then free electricity connections, so these beneficiaries are mostly women. The women beneficiaries, and how is the public policy of the state providing such an welfare provisions impacting the policy or the choices of women in electoral process. So the Lok Sabha elections had 65.7% of women voter turnout. Women's participation in rallies, campaigns and political affiliations remains low. Voting trend, only 14% of the women reports seeking voting advice from their spouses, indicating their growing agencies. But this is still higher in men. So this is also one of an issue where the women has to take advice of men in voting. And de facto, the women's voting choice is controlled by the men. Then the factors of increased turnout. There has been effort by election commission to ensure women's voter registration. There is also a self-empowerment hypothesis, which means that literacy and employment are believed to drive independent voting, but low workforce participation challenges this theory. Large scale male migration. So we have seen that in the rural areas, many of the males migrate even to the other states' urban areas. So this migration gives women more agency, and this has said to influence their participation in the elections. And large scale migrations may contribute to increased women voter turnout in state traditionally considered as socially and economically backward. Then women as beneficiaries or political agents. Women's voter turnout increased significantly in 2010s, prompting political parties to introduce women-centric schemes. The welfare programs, like just we discussed the beneficiaries and the public policy of the state related to welfare and the women's participation. Ladli Behna, Ladki Lakshmi played a major role in electoral victories. The initiatives often frame women as dependents rather than autonomous decision makers. High voter turnout does not necessarily translate into real political power. So, this is the conclusion or the underlining issue, that even if women participation increase, will that also lead to increase in women's political power? So, for that, political participation of women should increase in elections, as not only as electors but as contestants. So, this should also be the next step forward. What are the factors which influence women's political participation? Family obligations, humiliation and abuse, intersectionality of caste, class, regional identities. So, see, women should not be seen as one monolithic entity. There is intersection of caste. For example, a Dalit woman, what will be her political choice will be different from maybe a unreserved woman. Then regional identities, gender, proxy representation. Many women votes are done in proxy. Resource scarcity because of the money and muscle power. societal prejudices, that acceptability of women as a political leader is also less. So these are all the factors which influence political participation. Then what are the measures taken? So the constitutional measures here are right to vote, which was given in the constitution itself and which gives universal adult franchise. Then right to contest, it is given in Article 84 and 173. In the 73rd and 74th Amendment, where certain seats were reserved for women in the local bodies. Then 106th Constitutional Amendment, where women's reservation of 33% is mandated for election in Lok Sabha. So this is a historical step. A special session of parliament was called. So that is why this becomes important. Then the international efforts have been in 1979 Convention for Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. This particularly talks about the political empowerment of women. Then in 1995 Beijing Platform for Action. Then Millennial Development Goals also seek equality. Sustainable Development Goals, Sustainable Goal number 5 specifically is about gender equality, and it also talks about political participation. In furthering these goals, then again women's political participation will also increase. The way forward can be institutional transformation, then better educational opportunities, financial stability and liberty. Role of women organization is also important. Just as we discussed in the previous year questions, we saw that the first question was about civil society organizations and how is their functioning impacting participation of women at the state legislature. Then capacity building and awareness program. Leadership training of women is more important. So this is the crux. So this was it, and now here we have a practice question based upon women empowerment. And despite substantial developments, women continue to constitute a minority in most parliamentary bodies and are rarely seen in top political leadership positions. Comment. So try to answer this question and let us know if you have any feedback in the comment box below. And I hope you must have liked this session, and we tried our best to bring in what was there in today's newspaper. And that is all for today's discussion. It's me signing off. Have a good day. Thank you.